Hi, thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be discussing massage with a lacrosse ball. We're going to start off by the wall. Take your lacrosse ball, come on up to a wall, make sure you have lots of open space, and you're going to start off by putting your hips or your bottom against the wall. Then you're going to lean forward, take your lacrosse ball, and you're going to let it drop in that space between your spine and your shoulder blade. I like to get started a little bit further down than the area that I want to work, because after you get that ball placed, you want to stand up and kind of walk your feet forward just a little bit. Then you're going to bend in your knees and press into the ball, and you can rotate, you can kind of turn and pivot as you do this, and you can find spots to work on. Now, especially when we're working the head, neck, and shoulder area, it's very important to understand when you find a knot, when you find a spot that's very tight, imagine it set up like a target, and that tight spot is the bullseye of the target. In this case, you don't want to hit the bullseye, okay? You work those outer rings, you work the area around it, and by the time you get to that knot or that tight spot, it will be more willing to release for you. But if you go at your tight spot with a lacrosse ball and apply all the pressure you can, what's going to end up happening is your body's going to end up tensing up and tightening even more, which is the exact opposite of what you want to happen. Now, so as we're rolling here, I like to bend my knees and come on down and get the ball right up along my neck. When we did our tennis ball video for last week, tennis balls are great, but when you get them placed on your back, they can really only start sort of at that bottom area of the upper trap. However, with the lacrosse ball here, we can be against a wall, and because of the grippiness of the ball, we're really given a lot of flexibility in terms of how high up the neck we want to roll. And I also like to kind of dip down and then twist into it and have the ball roll sort of up and over. Never, ever roll across your spine. It's okay to roll across your shoulder blade, but don't ever roll across your spine. You could seriously injure yourself. Now, after you've got your upper trap done, then you want to put your bottom against the wall, lean forward a little bit, and let the ball come down a little bit lower. So now that ball is sort of right along the bottom edge of your shoulder blade in that zone. And we can press into that and we can roll and look for tight spots. So we've just done the upper trapezius, and now we're working on the middle trapezius and the rhomboids. And again, make sure you have wall space so that you can kind of twist and rotate into this as you go. And when you're done, lean forward, release the ball, and you can catch it. Other exercises that you can do while standing are feet. You can use the lacrosse ball for your feet. While you're standing or seated, place the ball on the floor, place your foot on top, roll, and get that open. Now, we can also do the front part of our chest, okay? So we've just done the upper traps, and if you're having really bad neck pain and you've got a spot that just won't go away, try working on the front side of your body, okay? So we take the lacrosse ball, and you're gonna come up against the wall. You want the ball to go right here, so it's sort of on a diagonal line up from your armpit. And then you're gonna press into the wall, and just like we did with the upper trap, you can really sort of move however you'd like to get that openness, okay? Any of this whole pectoral muscle is up for grabs. Over on the side here, you can access pec minor, or you can roll toward the center and get more of your pec major. Wherever you feel tight, wherever you feel like you need to release, do that. But like you notice right now, my ball is over here on the left side. Left arm is straight by your side. Don't have your arm bent or reaching or doing anything. Just let that arm relax, particularly of the side you're working on. Okay, now we're gonna go to some exercises where we're lying down. So now let's come on to our backs. We'll start off talking about doing the spine. I don't normally do the spine a whole lot with the lacrosse ball because I do prefer to have the double tennis ball, but you sure can. So you take it, and much like we do with the tennis ball, you could get it placed, and then when you get the lacrosse ball in a position, anytime you're working with a single ball, to decrease the pressure, turn away, rotate away. Okay, so if trying to come back and have full body weight on this is too intense, I'll just turn my head to the side and maybe even bring my arm across my body to release that. If I'm looking for more pressure, you want to lean into the ball. Do what you can. Bring an arm across to get that increased pressure. So just like we would do with tennis balls, you can roll on down and work the muscles along the spine. Similar for the glutes. You can take the ball and you can lay down and do the glutes. I prefer to be seated. So you'll sit up with the knees bent, and to do glutes, you'll just sort of roll in this level position here. And I say level because the piriformis is located sort of inside that glute area. So when you find your tailbone and about halfway up your tailbone and off to the side is the piriformis. Now, to access the piriformis, I do prefer to lay down. So, if I were laying down coming into that, I would take the ball, I would place it so that it was right next to my sacrum, which is your tailbone, about halfway up. Now, my feet are hip-width apart, legs are parallel. You're going to inhale, and as you exhale, you want to soften into the ball. Always when you're working with the lacrosse ball, tennis ball, whatever, you inhale, and then as you exhale, think of letting that muscle release into the firmness of the ball. Now, my piriformis is releasing nicely into the ball, so I'm going to move. This one is tricky, okay? The piriformis runs on a diagonal. So in order to access that, we have to use a little bit of high school geometry. So you're going to scoot yourself back a little, but then the hips are going to lift up and pivot just a little bit, and that brings us back to the piriformis muscle. It is important to get right on that muscle and stay on it, that we push back and rotate. So now this is my new starting point with this little bit of rotation here, and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to relax. And now to get to the next spot on my piriformis, I leave my hips like this. I roll back a little bit, and then I rotate into it some more. And normally, if you're someone who has a tight piriformis, you can tell when you're on it and when you're not on it. You can also do fun things while you're trying to get that muscle to relax. You can let that bottom leg open and close, and that'll help you make sure you're on the piriformis as well. Okay, the last exercise that I recommend doing with the lacrosse ball is getting the Quadratus Lumborum and the psoas. Now, these two muscles are frequently culprits for low back pain. All right, so if you're someone who has low back pain, even if you're someone who doesn't have pain per se, if you just have tightness, this can be very intense. So you do want to make sure, keep in mind, only spend as much time on this as is comfortable. If you discover that your body is not relaxing, move on. Move on or be done with it. By all means, don't try to stand there and force it into happening. Okay, so coming onto your back, we're going to start with the lacrosse ball near the spine, but of course not on it, right up on the top of your hip. Okay, so there's that back part of your pelvis, and that is where we want the ball, so that there's a pressure that happens just a little bit against the bone, but mostly to the muscles and the tissue that connects to the bone. All right? And so as we do this, sort of like our piriformis work, this time you kind of scoot to the side and then you rotate into it. And that's how you want to go. You want to scoot to the side and rotate. And I like to keep my legs together. You can have space between them, but I prefer to have the legs together to give me the extra weight to get into this twist. And then you scoot and you rotate. And so as we're going, we're working all those attachment and insertion areas that are right up along the top of the hip and the pelvis. And when we do this, we want to keep going along until we come all the way onto our side. Right? And so as you keep going, you scoot and you want to bring this shoulder under you. And there you can see right here's that lacrosse ball. It's not all the way out yet. There we go. And this is going to, like I said, vary in intensity depending on how tight you are and how much attention these muscles need. I hope that you have enjoyed this information. If you have, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also you can go find me on my website, www.custompilatesandyoga.com. I always, with these videos, with every video I do, I have a written article that goes along with it, and I don't have the same information in the article as in the video. So they're meant to really work together. So just because you've watched the video doesn't mean you've gotten all my information. Go onto the website and pick my brain. Thank you.